through it and it was letters from all the
There
boys.
was a paratrooper medic gave me a shot of morphine.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what outfit he
I
was
read
in.
several
Yeah,
of
didn't
them.
matter.
It was just
As long as you had what it took.
He treated my wounds.
Yeah.
They spread those guys all over creation.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
There's some.
they said those guys came down 10, 15 miles from where they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
They may be the same. I don't
That was
know
just
the
American know-how there, though. They just started the war from wherever they landed and took care of business. I remember reading that a couple of the boats under Colonel Rudder there were about to hit the beach in the wrong place. And
Yeah, we were going in on the wrong place. Had to go parallel the coast for
They don't tell
30
me
minutes.
here, Scott, if she could
Yeah.
find it, but we emptied that closet.
under German guns the whole way.
Well, they was in that
We were
bedroom.
about,
under-
I
on
think,
that
35
ceiling
minutes late
chest,
landing.
And she's moved the chest over,
What they
the
had planned.
bed now. But the next time
Well, when I got over there,
look at 'em and go through.
I
and
went
ask
over
them
there,
about some
the
of them.
Belgian bug happened. That's what took me over to Europe. I was headed for the
So I asked her
Pacific.
the other day, I said,
I
"Let's-
done
let's
took
look
my
and see if we
amphibious
can find
training in
anything."
California to go
I know
to the
some
Pacific.
folks probably, if
The
you
Belgian
send
bulge
them
happened.
along, y'all probably
Then they
don't
transferred my
realize
whole
it.
outfit, 86th Infantry Division, Blackhawk Division. We had our insignia was a big black hawk on our shoulder. But they changed our directions and we went across the states, all the way across the states into Europe. And the fighting was going on in Cologne, Germany. Cologne. And the Germans was on one side of the Rhine and the Americans was on the other side. So that's where I started my travels. And we went, our outfit went all the way down through the Ruhr Valley from Cologne, Germany. And we ended up in Salzburg, Austria when the war was over. And when it was over there, then we'd done had our amphibious training to go to the Pacific. So as a unit, 86th Infantry Division, the whole division, they sent us back to the States with a little leave here in the States and then back to California. And we hit the boats and headed for the Pacific then. And then when they dropped that bomb over there, why, we was in the Philippine Islands, ready to go on in. So we didn't have to go in on the Pacific side. But we was ready, because when we left Germany over there, we done had our amphibious training. We done had our training to get on off of them boats and get on them landing crafts and go, you know. We didn't have to go on account of that. But that's a pretty good little walk from Cologne, Germany to Salzburg, Austria, I'll tell you.
I guess
And
so.
they were shooting at you all the time. I've got one little thing I want to tell here. My buddy, he was Polish. He was a Polak, and we was in the same squad. And we was on a little patrol down there, as we was going down, and the Germans had blown the bridge out over the Ruhr River, and we was supposed to cross there and keep going. They sent this patrol out, and we was going down. It was in the summertime. Crops was being made. The Germans, they still made their crops, you know. And we was going toward that river bank, trying to find a place to get across the river for the rest of the men too. Okay, they were shooting at us, and we'd jump and run, you know, and then we'd hit the ground and got down in that to get as close to the ground as we could, so all that wheat and rye and stuff would be over our head. Anyway, we were going down through there, and my buddy, he was running alongside of me, and he says, "Al, I'm hit. And I looked over. I said, "Why, you're not hurt." They'd shot his canteen of water on his side. It shot a hole in his canteen, and water was running out on his leg. I said, "Man, you're lucky." But when they shoot at you, while you can't dodge the bullets. It's going where it's going to. But he thought he was hit because it done wet in his side. It's kind of comical, then it wasn't comical then, you know.
I guess it was funny after it was
Oh,
over.
funny
It wasn't
after.
funny at the time,
Yeah.
I guess.
But anyway,
Better the canteen than
yeah.
him, I guess.
We crossed that river that night, and the whole outfit did, because they was behind us. See, we was out in front. We was a patrol out in front. We crossed that river that night and kept advancing on down through through Germany, but,
Did y'all have to use boats, or did they get?
yeah. They was, no, they had partly was little skiffs or boats, but the Seabees, the Navy part, some of them, they had, that late that night, they had put out a pontoon bridge out there. Run their boats in there and put a little cover over so the men could get across. And then the machinery had to go a different place to get across the river. But anyway, the fighting man, he got across on that little makeshift walkway that they put on top of them boats, you know. But anyway, that was a good one. My second in command of my squad, he got wounded. He didn't get killed. I don't know what happened to him later, but he was wounded at that time, and I drug him off the place where we was at. It was kind of an inlet there. The water backed up like our river does here. It backed up, and I drug him off of the high place up there, down on the side of the bank there, away from where they were shooting. And some of our other men later came in and got him. Was behind us, but I don't know whatever happened to him. I know he was wounded, but I don't know how bad.
Yeah.
But that boy, yeah, we went on, and when we got on down, we were still buddies when we got down in Austria, and it was getting close to the end of the war then, and he could speak them people's language over there, Polak. And he come to me he says, Al, says, some of these here farmers back over in yonder, cause you know over there they had villages about 4 or 5 miles apart, and they would farm the land in between. They'd live here and farm out there. He says, there's a bunch of Germans over yonder in that village over there that wants to give up. They don't want to be captured by the Russians. The Russians was coming in. He said, you want to go over there and get them? I said, yeah, let's go get them. So we took off walking. We just left the rest of the outfit. We took off walking down this wagon road, and we got over there to that little village, and here are the houses and barns and things. And he says, which one of them you want? I said, I'll take the house, you can have the barn. So I went toward the house, and he went toward the barn. So when I got to the house, and I got to the front door, and I stepped over the side of the door, knocked on the door. I says, anybody in here can speak English? I heard something. Yeah, I can. I said, well, you're prisoners of war. So I opened the door, kicked the door open like that. I was still over the side of the threshold, and I peeked in, and here was about 5 officers and a couple of their women secretaries in there, just sitting in there, like they had good sense, you know. And I said, I went in there and I said, y'all are prisoners. I said, I'm an American soldier. And so they got up. I searched them, and I've got my set of binoculars there at the house. They come off of one of them, a German colonel. But anyway, I got them outside, and by then my buddy, he come out of the barn. There were 16 German soldiers. He got out there at the barn. There's 16 of them. Here they come out of the barn. None of them had no gun or nothing. We had a gun, but they didn't. So he brought them out, and we lined them up and headed back toward the rest of the outfit, you know. And it was 2 or 3 miles down that country road. And but I got a watch. Well, the watch is one the cow eat up there at Roosevelt. Had I told you that tale about the cow eating the watch?
Oh,
No.
you wouldn't believe this. Don't tell it.
That's another tale.
Talk loud enough for him to hear.
Yeah, that's another part of the tale. But anyway, we was headed 2 abreast, going back, marching them soldiers. I was leading them over here on the left side, and my buddy, he was coming up behind. And I noticed this lieutenant that could speak English. He's the one that said, yeah, he can speak English. But he had a nice watch on. And I done got me one from that colonel. And I said to myself, my buddy back there, that's kind of wild. So I dropped back, I said, buddy, would you like to have a nice watch? I said, that German up there's got a pretty watch. Yeah, I hadn't got a thing, he said. I said, okay. So I picked up and went back to the front of the line up there where he was, and I said, hey, I went to pointing at his wrist. I said, buddy, back there, want souvenir? Watch. He says, Nick's souvenir, Nick's souvenir. That meant he didn't understand what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he did because he could speak English. I said, oh yeah, my buddy, he wants a souvenir. So I dropped back again. I asked my buddy, I said, you sure you want that watch? Yeah. I took back up and walked a little faster, you know, and got to the front of the line. When I got up there to the front of the line, I said, buddy, back there, won't watch for souvenir. Nick's souvenir. I said, well, you can understand what souvenir means. You can understand English. I clicked the safety off on my rifle. I said, buddy, want souvenir? He said, oh, yeah, souvenir. Send you souvenir. So he peeled that thing off, and I dropped back and took my buddy back. But anyway, we took them on into the company area then, and buddy, you talk about the rest of them guys coming out, and they flogged them boys. They searched them from head to foot. You know, well, they got them from souvenirs.
I guess
But
that's
anyway,
the lesser of the two evils being captured by y'all.
yeah.
Well, by far,
By
because
far,
the Germans, they treated the
The reason they
Russians
did
so
it
bad
was
that it was major payback time when the Russians made it into Germany.
Yeah.
And some of those guys, the ones that lived, the Russians didn't even let them go back home until 1955.
Yeah.
10 years after the war was
I
over.
guess a lot of them.
Something like 1 out of 20
Yeah, they taught
that
the
went to
North
Russia ever
Vietnamese
came
well.
back.
Yeah.
All the rest
A lot
of
of
them
them never
either
did
died
get
or they just flat worked them to death.
They taught the North Vietnamese well. They trained how to run the prison camps.
Yeah.
Didn't send them back either. So.
Yeah.